In 1981, he had everything. A #1 single that a whole generation could sing by heart. A Grammy Award. 12 million people tuning in every day just to watch his face on their television screens. Rick Springfield was the brightest smile in pop music. Handsome, charming, impossibly successful. And in the quiet hours, alone, he was fighting to stay alive. Behind that dazzling teen idol smile was a man who had battled a crushing clinical depression since he was a teenager. A darkness so deep that at 16, long before the fame, he had tried to end his own life. He survived by pure chance, and the shadow never fully left him. This is the story the screaming fans never knew. The story of a man who wrote one of the most joyful, instantly recognizable songs in pop history, while carrying a private pain that no amount of success could touch. Because that is the cruel lie depression tells. It does not care about #1 singles. It does not care about Grammy Awards or sold-out tours or millions of adoring fans. It can sit right beside all of it in the same room and whisper that none of it matters. And yet, Rick Springfield is still here, still on stage, still writing, still touring, well into his 70s. His story is not one of a life lost. It is the story of a man who has fought the same battle for 60 years and who is still standing. How does someone who seems to have it all end up wanting out? Rick Springfield was born on this day in 1949. To understand the darkness, we have to go back to the very beginning. He was born Richard Lewis Springthorpe on August 23, 1949, in a suburb of Sydney, Australia, the son of an army officer. The family moved constantly, from base to base, country to country. He was always the new boy, always the outsider, never staying anywhere long enough to belong. And somewhere in that restless, rootless childhood, a darkness settled over him. Not ordinary teenage sadness, something heavier and relentless. His mother took him to see doctors trying to understand what was wrong with her boy. But this was the 1960s. Nobody said the word depression. They only asked, "What is wrong with him?" By 16, the pain had become unbearable. And in a shed in his family's garden, Rick Springfield tried to take his own life. By a fluke, a knot that came undone, a rope that gave way, he survived. He would later say he did not go out there to make an attempt. He went out there to die. But he lived. And in the aftermath of that darkest night, a window opened. The one thing that gave him a reason to keep going. Music. He picked up a guitar, and it became his lifeline, his escape, the one place the darkness could not follow. In 1968, still only 17, he found himself in an unimaginable place, Vietnam, playing for American troops when the base came under attack. It was a brush with death and violence that would haunt him for the rest of his life. One more shadow layered onto a soul already carrying so many. A boy who had already stared into the abyss, clinging to a guitar as the only thing keeping him alive. What do you think music becomes for a person like that? A career or a form of survival? Music carried him out of Australia. In 1972, a single called "Speak to the Sky" gave him a taste of fame. And then it vanished, and he was dropped, and the dry years came. By 1980, Rick Springfield was in Los Angeles and nearly broke. A good-looking almost was in his 30s, running out of chances. Then everything changed at once. He was cast as Dr. Noah Drake on the soap opera General Hospital, a role watched by 12 million people a day, though it paid him just $500 a week. And at the very same moment, he released a song he had written about wanting the one girl he could not have. Jessie's Girl. It went to #1. It won him a Grammy. It became the pop anthem of a generation. And decades later, it was voted the greatest karaoke song of all time. Suddenly the outsider, the dark kid from Australia, was the most wanted face in America. He sold more than 20 million albums, 17 top 40 hits. Don't Talk to Strangers, Love Somebody, Affair of the Heart. For a few dazzling years, Rick Springfield was everywhere. On the radio, on the television, on the bedroom wall of every teenager in the country. But here is the thing about a lifelong depression. It does not lift because you had a hit record. Beneath the fame, the same darkness was waiting, and now it came with a strange, new cruelty. The feeling that he did not deserve any of it, that the adoration was for a face and a smile that were not really him. He had chased success his whole life, believing it would fix him, and now he had more of it than he ever dreamed, and the pain was still there. What does it do to a person to get everything they wanted and feel no better? Then, at the peak of it all, his father died, the one man whose pride he had chased, gone, just as Rick reached the summit he had climbed his whole life to reach. It shattered him, and it deepened a question that would haunt him. What is all this success for if the people you love are not here to see it? There was another shadow too, a stranger one. Jessie's girl was so enormous, so iconic, that it began to swallow everything else. To much of the world, Rick Springfield became the man who sang that one song, as if the other 16 hits, the 20 million albums, had never happened. The great thing is, it's an iconic song, he once said. The bad thing is, a lot of people think it's the only song I ever wrote. He had given the world a piece of pure joy, and in return, it had quietly reduced him to it. And still, through all of it, the depression he privately called Mr. D would come and go as it pleased. Sold out arenas one night, a black and bottomless emptiness the next. He hid it, the way he had always hidden it, behind the brightest smile in the room. For decades, almost no one knew. The fans saw the idol, the cameras saw the smile, the truth, the shed, the rope, the lifelong war with his own mind. Stayed locked away, a secret he carried entirely alone through the loudest years of his fame. He had spent his whole life performing happiness he did not feel. How long can a person hold a secret that heavy? And what finally makes them decide to set it down? In 2010, at the age of 60, Rick Springfield did the bravest thing of his life. He wrote a memoir, Late at Night, and he opened it with the truth. The book begins, in his own words, with him trying to end his life. The idol pulled back the curtain and showed the world the darkness behind the smile. He did not have to. He was a beloved star. He could have kept the secret forever. But he understood something, that his fame could give the pain a voice. That a teenager sitting alone in the dark, feeling exactly what he had felt at 16, needed to know that someone like them had survived it. And so the pop idol became something more, an advocate. He speaks openly now about depression, about that night in the shed, about the war that never fully ends. I know what it's like, he says to the kids on the edge. You want the pain to stop. Give yourself a year. Your life will change, because his did. The boy who wanted out at 16 has lived a whole extraordinary life he would have missed. The songs, the stages, a marriage of over 40 years, his children, decades of music he never would have made. Everything. On the far side of a night, he barely survived, and he is still here. Still on stage in his 70s, still writing, still playing Jessie's Girl for crowds who sing every word. Not a man who beat his darkness once and for all, but a man who has gotten up and faced it every single day for 60 years. That is not weakness. That is the bravest kind of strength there is. Rick Springfield was born on this day in 1949. Not gone, not lost. Still standing, still singing, and still telling anyone who will listen that the darkness lies and the moment will pass. If the brightest smile you know might be hiding the hardest battle. Be gentle and ask. Happy birthday, Rick Springfield. Thank you for staying. Subscribe. We do this every day.